world, and then you just happen to be magically living in the same city. So
No.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's your second born. Was your
Yes,
daughter.
it was my second born.
So then, what happened after we spoke last time?
Well, I had always said that I wasn't going to search for these children, and then I made that momentous decision, and then I found Sue.
Yes.
And I needed time to assimilate that.
Yep.
So I thought, I won't rush into the other search, I'll leave it.
Yep.
And it's been rolling around in my mind for a little while. And then a few weeks ago, just one Friday afternoon, I thought, today's the day. So I picked up the phone and straight on to Post Adoption Support.
Yep.
And we initiated the search.
And what's gone on since you initiated that search, Di? Because
Oh.
you've been a little bit cagey. You've told me, you called me up a couple of weeks ago saying,
I know, it was so exciting.
I know. So, why is this exciting? What's happening?
Because how they were, when I went search the first time, I worked through the Government Agency Adoptive Services. This time I'm working through Post Adoption Support. And they work by going to the electoral roll. So once a week, one of the staff go in there, because they can't do that online.
Yep.
So they go into the office, and the counsellor had said to me, just be prepared, because there might be 20 people with that name.
Yeah, of course. With around that age.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the search is Australia-wide. So she rang me the next day and said, Di, there is one person with that name
Yes.
in Australia on the electoral roll, and he lives in North Queensland, and he was adopted by a couple in Cairns. So just like it's all this nervous excitement, it was bubbling up inside me. It didn't have anywhere to go, I had nowhere to go.
And so you called,
So I called 105 people, including you.
Well, I feel privileged that I was one of those people that you called, because I'm very excited, especially after we met and last time we spoke about your journey. And for anybody who wants to know that journey and hasn't watched the last podcast with Di, go back, have a look. It's pretty good. It's good, it's bad,
It really
it's
went into
up and
depth.
down.
It really went into depth, because you really drew out how I was feeling, how it affected me.
Yep.
I probably wasn't expecting quite that depth in the interview.
I get deep.
And I did struggle with that a little bit, so it was probably a fairly somber interview.
Yep.
Whereas today it's a bit more upbeat, because we've covered all that stuff now.
Absolutely.
We know all about that, and we're on for the up and up.
Yep, 100%.
I'm just excited now, so we wait now. The letter's gone out today.
Yes.
The initial letter. So we just wait and see what response we get. And I'm not expecting it to be as quick, because my thoughts are that men don't react to things that are emotional as quickly as what women do.
This is true.
So I think a man is more likely to get the letter, look at it and think, oh yeah, right, I'll deal with that later in the drawer.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Spot on.
Well,
Yeah.
It depends on how important and how exciting it is, and so the letter went out today. So I got a package from Sydney today. I think I might have got it last Friday, but I finally got the post office today. And thank you, Francesca, for the book. So I got another book from another author.
Isn't that lovely?
Oh yeah, it's an awesome book. So far I've got through the first chapter, and I can't wait to read the rest of it. So, but I totally understand what you're saying, and he might need. I mean, the difference between meeting your daughter and meeting your son, it might be he needs more time to try to understand and contemplate.
Well, I think so too, because as far as I'm aware of what I've been told by the agencies, he hasn't instituted a search of any kind,
Yep.
whereas Sue had instituted a search quite some years ago.
Does that make it easier?
Well, I think because it helped establish where she was at the time.
Yep.
And because she stayed in Brisbane, she has never moved away, she just moved in another part of the city, it made it easier to track. Whereas with this one, we don't know.
Yep. That might have something to do not just with the fact that he's a male compared to a female, but maybe his upbringing.
Yes, absolutely, because I know nothing about his upbringing.
Yep.
Absolutely, and I'm not meant to, apart from the fact that I knew that the couple who adopted him were dentists,
Yes.
and that they lived in Cairns. That's the extent of my
How long have you known that for?
In 2018, when I initiated the search, I was given that same basic information about Sue
Yep.
and David.
Yep. So they were allowed to tell you that. Did you say 2008?
18.
18, right? Yeah. So they're allowed to tell you that much.
I had to verify who I was.
Of course.
I went in to see them and had
Yep.
my birth certificate and
Yep.
driver's licence and all the things so that they could verify
Yep.
who I was.
So-
and say that I had these 2 children, and I gave them the dates and I gave them all the information that I could remember.
Yeah.
And then from that, they substantiated who I was.
Yep.
And then they were prepared to talk to me.
I just want to check, is that cutting in and out, sound? Or it is for me, that's all.
Is it?
Oh, just a little bit. I was just going to push that microphone to your mouth a little bit further.
A little bit closer?
A little bit closer.
I'll be swallowing it.
I am, look. This is the
That's
stance.
Not, that's,
This
not,
is the stance.
that's not quite what I want for smoke, eh?
Smoke, eh? It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, isn't it?
Oh, it's why not?
So, because your daughter had initiated a search, and then you initiated a
But
search.
I didn't know that she had done it.
No, but
No one ever notified
but
me.
right. That's
And I
not,
don't
that's not how
understand
that's
why.
supposed to work, though. Like if
Oh, well, I didn't think it was either, because when I wrote the original book in 2006,
yeah.
I made inquiries and I made sure that there was no blocks on my name anywhere, and that if either of them came searching for me, they would be able to find me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened. All I know is that I was never notified.
Okay. So, but then as soon as you did a search, it came up that she'd previously searched your daughter, and so then the 2 searches sort of like, okay, bang, there's a link. Because you're both consenting.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Whereas because your son hasn't actually tried to look for his birth mother, he hasn't initiated a search.
So I don't know, it's an unknown factor.
Right, so-
How he will respond, but even though Sue had made that initial contact,
Yep.
she didn't want to really make contact with me at that stage. She was just being curious about where she'd come from.
Yeah.
And if she was going to be contacted, she wanted to be contacted at work because she didn't want to upset or disrespect her adoptive parents.
And that's respectful.
So she wasn't ready at that stage. And in 2006, I probably wasn't ready at that stage.
Yeah.
But in that intervening 10 years, I think each of us have grown in our own way. And I've done an enormous amount of personal development work to get to this point. I was now the woman who was ready to receive.
And your daughter was now also a
And
mother.
she was now, no, she's not a mother.
Oh, she's not a mother? Okay.
She's never married, never had
Okay.
children.
Okay. So when it comes to your son, so the letter's gone out this morning. Now, you'd sit on that for about a week, right?
Well, one would think so.
So you sit on that for about a week. So towards the end of this week, maybe next week, you're starting to get
something.
nervous, a little bit
Hear
excited, because there's
I
a
know
chance.
what else, I've got something else. Yeah, the other thing that they told me was that when they looked at the electoral roll,
Yeah.
there was somebody else, if David isn't the only person living in the house.
Of course.
So from that, it would suggest that he has a family. So that's even better news, that's even more exciting.
Well, for sure. So there's a chance that he doesn't want to pursue
Absolutely.
this, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's just say that's 50-50. I'd like to think it wouldn't. Like if I was adopted, I know I'd want to know who my parents were, because there's no, like, it's not your fault, like, that they were taken away from you.
That's just how society
Absolutely,
was
so
back
there's
then.
no reason to blame you. It's not like you gave birth and then you decided to change your mind and not want to be a parent and give them away, right? So wasn't your fault. So it'd be nice to have the opportunity to explain that, wouldn't it?
It would be lovely,
And you've done that with your daughter.
yes.
How was that when you got to explain to her the circumstances of you and
She
her?
was incredulous that that's how it was, and I had actually sent her, there was a letter included in her paperwork,
Yep.
and there was a brief explanation about that, about how times were so different back in these 1960s.
Yep.
How you weren't supported, there was nowhere else to go, there were no other decisions to be made, it was just a fait accompli, it just happened.
Yeah.
And it was like, she's just incredulous that that's how society was, and that I could have been treated in that manner.
Yeah. That's.
So
I mean,
whether that will happen with this one, I don't know, because we have a letter ready,
yes.
like my introductory letter ready.
Yep.
When the counsellor gets the call, that it's ready to go.
And so when you say letter, do you mean like via post? Because I just assume post because I
No,
got a
yeah,
package.
yeah.
No, this is electronically, right?
No.
Oh, it's via
hard
post.
copy.
Oh,
Hard
wow.
copy.
Okay.
All that paperwork goes out hard copy.
and nothing wrong with that. That's still the official way of doing things. So I'm excited for you, Di.
I'm excited for you too.
Yeah, for sure. And so if your son is in North Queensland, what's the process? Would you fly up there and meet face to face, or are you going to like meet online, like on a Zoom call or something? What would you?
Because Ben and I are going away for 4 months. Well, I'll be home for 4 months.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen on a face-to-face meeting in that period of time.
Well, that was bad timing.
I know, and I blame Peter's sister.
Good work.
But that's okay, because it'll give an opportunity to build a relationship over the phone or by email or maybe Zoom or however it happens. Whereas with Kat, so it happened really quickly, but she was right here in the city and I was here.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I had an emotional upheaval last Friday.
Yeah.
I posted a short video in a group because I had always said, because David is my son is the one who's the product of the road.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of work going on in the background about how I will answer that question, how we're going to approach it if the counsellor's asked by him about his father, what do they say?
Yeah. And
I had always said that I would never try and track down the 3 men. I only knew one of the 3 anyway, and that's my decision. And when I posted this little video, there was a comment came back and said, well, I have a very different opinion to you, Di. I think that no matter what age, no matter what the circumstances, they should be brought to justice. And that one little comment sort of tipped me over the edge and had me doubting. It had me thinking, what if they did do something to somebody else? Is that my responsibility? Anyway, when I discussed this, and that happened the day before I had the conversation with the counsellor on post-adoption. Yeah. And she reframed it for me beautifully. And she said to me, some people, we all come onto the earth with a different purpose. We all come here for a different reason. We all have different skills. Some people are very keen to get up and fight into the legal system, get up and fight and yell and scream and do their thing. Some people are happy to sit in the corner and suck their thumb. And then other people will react with love, forgiveness and caring, which is the route that I've taken.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that one person is better than another, but
or
each
right.
of us, all right,
Yeah.
but each of us have a role to play. And that reframe just made such a difference. It makes total sense to me. And I'm back in my sense of belief about my own decision.
Because it ultimately, it is your decision.
It is.
And I mean, but sometimes someone will say something and it might not be the right thing, might not be the wrong thing, it's just a thing.
Yeah, just
it's
a
an
comment.
opinion.
Yeah.
Because we're allowed, we live in this awesome country where we have the ability to voice our own opinions.
Yeah, we do.
We like to be able to do that with respect to other people, of course, with respect to yourself. Not everyone's like that, but most people are. And for someone to say, well, my opinion's different, Di, I believe that these men, no matter how long ago it was, should be brought to justice. That's ultimately your decision, but maybe when you meet your son, if you meet your son, well, maybe it's something you guys can talk about. If that comes up, like if the conversation goes like, what about my father? The biggest thing is no one wants to be like lied to. No one wants to be like, oh yeah, your dad was
I won't
this.
lie.
Exactly. But he does have to be prepared to hear the truth. And I mean that's going to be a hard one. That's definitely harder than your daughter.
I'll be guided through that process.
Yes.
The counsellor.
Yes.
We've already had a couple of sessions about that and a session around rejection in case it's a no. But if it is a no, it might be a no.
I feel bad for smiling now. I was thinking, the thought that went through my head I wasn't smiling when you said being rejected. I was smiling because I thought, you've covered all of your bases. Like, you're covering all of your bases. What if he doesn't want to meet you?
Of course I
Don't
do.
take it personally because it's not your fault. If he does want to meet you, now how does that play out? Do you do it face to face, online, like life gets in the way, like you're going away for a few months? He might not be ready to meet you yet, so it might end up happening face to face. And then what happens when he asks you, what happened? Who's my father? And that in itself is I think that's the hardest story. That's the hardest part of
It
this.
will be.
It will be,
It's
yeah.
a very different. It's a very different scenario.
Because when you talked about, you know, what happened when you were young and you had your daughter, that's not a, that's like the way life was back then. As in, you got pregnant to your boyfriend. I mean, people get pregnant to their boyfriends all the time now, right?
It's been happening since the beginning of time.
Well, it has been. I think it's less, like, 'cause there's a lot, religion was followed a little bit more back in the